Hello guys, how are you? It's great to have you today. And and so welcome Brandon also, and thank you for coming today. And it's our pleasure to have all of you in the very nice evening in Vietnam. And I bet this should be some afternoon in Dubai. And it's great to have all of you. And our agenda today, as you know, we start the Venture to the Venture, and it's a series that we try to introduce more about the VC industry and also angel investment. And we try to invite more professionals from around the world to share more about their experience. And then we come with some new approach about what happened in our world and also after the pandemic, what we should understand and how can we do investment better, especially venture investment. So what I would like to do for now is some agenda so that we understand that what we will do today. If you attend the previous section of ETalk, Venture to the Venture, you may realize that we got some guests from Germany, as from Christian from SDGX, and that topic is about the impact investment. And after that, just after that, we got Admir Vetman from Israel, and we discussed the deep tech environment, and also we reflect that into the Asia Pacific deep tech environment. So today, the agenda, I would like to introduce a little bit about the Irish VC landscape. What I have chance, I was lucky to involve in for a couple of years, and then some notes from myself as an angel investor. And after that, we come to Brandon, our honor guest today, to share about his 30 years of experiences and adventures. I think it's so pumped to have him today, and we will got the question and answer section after that. So for now, I go quickly into the short introduction. I used to manage fund in Europe, and also we work with high net worth people to manage their portfolio and the wealth. And I used to be the strategy researcher for Tsinghua University in Beijing. And for now, after the pandemic, I come back to Vietnam and I contribute to the project, which is my own company, which is an investment platform, as Wiziin Incorporation. As if you follow the program of Vietnam, you will know about that company. And from that background, I share more about the VC landscape in Ireland, that I can take some of the takeaway that I have. As you know, that Ireland is a kind of small island, but anyway, we try very much to get more involvement from other worlds. Like if you come from America to Europe, you will go above Ireland. So Ireland is the gateway to Europe. And also because we have many Irish ancestors that come to America, so we got good relationship with America, and also we also the gateway for the European to get into the America. And for now, as we can see, most of the high-tech company got headquartered in Dublin, in the Silicon Dock in Ireland. And why can Ireland create something like that? And the landscape, we can see that it's some of the effort of the government when they try very much to improve and also promote the innovation landscape and also the VC industry there. One name which is very famous these days, which is Enterprise Island. Enterprise Island, they are the largest seed investor in Europe. In terms of the volume of deals that they involve in. And also one more reason that we can see why that Ireland is a good spot for the innovation and VC. because of the acceleration programs. Is 3 of the programs in the top 8 in Europe is in Ireland. So it's got the very very insightful knowledge for not only the innovative companies and also the VC to get into those programs. And we got the strong and growing network of local seed funds and venture capitalists. And in the next one, next slide, you will see that what kind of fund that we can look for in Ireland. And we got the network of business angel, and that is called the Halo Business Angel Network. And we got Brandon here as the chairman from that network in Dubai. And also the syndicate is very active in Ireland. And advantages of the business, the Irish business and the tax environment, you can find that in investment, when we do investment in Ireland, normally we can get the tax as low as 12%. And if you invest in innovative companies, it's even lower. So it's a very competitive advantage of Ireland compared to the rest of Europe in terms of investment and innovation companies. And for the next one, I will name down some of the notable VC that very famous in Ireland these days. And they all kind of very big name. Like we got here Act Ventures involved in technology, high tech, and ICT. Alan Bridge is a very notable name, and they focus more nowadays in deep tech and HBAN and the Fontaine, and we Frontline, of course. And also we got good universities in Ireland. National University of Ireland, my old university, University College Dublin. Inside the UCD, University College Dublin, we got Novus UCD, is a program accelerator, and also we partner with the investor to find good high-tech company to get them in and try to help them in terms of more knowledge and more connection, so that we can see that the quality of Irish environment, not only VC, also companies, is on the very high in terms of the average of Europe. And compared to Vietnam, I must say that we need to do something more, something that I have mentioned in the last slide. So we need more good tax, and also we need more accelerator program, and especially that I just mentioned these days in the event that we have, we need more fund managers. We got the finance in this area. Asia Pacific is where we got a lot of cash. We got Australia, we got China, and also the Southeast Asia, but we lack of fund managers. So this is the pain point of this area in terms of innovation investment. And I used to be the angel investor, so that I got some takeaway. If we come to the next part, which is I will start this story, and then Brandon will help me after that. And sum up my notes when becoming the angel investor. The price of the investment in day one is decides the returns. So negotiates, and also we would like to understand about the deal that we get involved in, and what is the price, and how much money that we need to invest in, and after that it can decide the return. And because our money is a very high risk, so we invest in something is not visible yet. So that's why we seek for the minimum returns of 5 times. But if you are in the VC world, if you manage the VC fund, you look for 10 times, of course. And we, like VC, we got the journey from 3 to 7 years. So we need to wait. Anyway, but we involve actively with the company that we get in. And also for us, the dilution is our enemy. As you know, the startup always, they raise funds stage by stage. And after one stage, our percentage, our ownership will dilute. And it's be diluted. So that's why we need to consider that by follow-on investment afterward. And also practical business plan. Sometimes I feel that it's never happened, but also we need to plan that. We cannot skip that, but also we understand that it can be accepted not to be happen. But anyway, we also need something to discuss on as an investor to work with the founders. And once we invested, we lose control of our money. That's something that I take from my understanding. And of course, because we need to understand and we need to believe in the founders that we invest in them. And also we need to syndicate with a strong VC. It's something very, very important. So it's like, that's why in the last slide, you see that we need to know about the VC. And like the case of HBAN, Halo Business Angel Network in Ireland, and they try a way to gather more angel investors together, and then they can co-invest. That's a good thing, and we can syndicate. The syndication will have us to check our sanity. If we're crazy, too crazy to invest in the company, and also it's have us to split out the risk. It's a good way. So if you play in this world, you need to know a lot of people in terms of VC and also angel investor. Invest in people, but as long as the market is growing. So as you can see, if you're a founder, you come to a VC, they always say that they invest in founders, they invest in the people. But if the market is not there and the market is not growing, they will not care about the founder anymore. So normally we check through three things when we do due diligence. In my case, we check for the fit between the product and the market, the product market fit. The second thing is that we check for the founders and the product fit. Is a founder good enough to develop that kind of product? And after that, the third one, the most important one, is that is our fund fit with the product and with the company. So it's the three things that we usually do, and markets play a very important role in here. The next one that I want to share, which is 80% of the potential success is down to the founder and the CEO. It's related to the last sentence that I must that I consider, which is once we invest, we lose control of our money. So that's why we need to count on the founder and CEO and also their team. Normally, we love to have the founding team of like 3 or 4 talented guys, and then have us to make these things happen. And the CEO, we need to check them very detailedly. They got experience, track record, integrity is something very, very important, and their passion. The passion to do the things. I believe that Brandon will go deeply into that case afterward with his 30 years of experience to consider that what kind of person they and the ambition that they need to have. As I mentioned, market, product fit, product founder fit, and then founder and fund fit. And properly funded is something that we need to have a look at. Because anyway, we are angel investor. We just the stakeholder in the game. We cannot fulfill the whole demand of finance of the founders need. So that's why we need to check if the company will have properly funded and tend to be. So we agree to have that. We actively involved in the board. But anyway, there any chance that not only us get into the company and have it to be fully funded is something very important. And the quality of the pitch, of course, and the financial projection. The financial projection will show that if the founders is ready, and also they know the number enough, and also it's a plan anyway. So I must say that it's unlikely to have the exact reality happen from that paper. So the financial projection is something that we used to discuss. In the real life, there's a lot of things to do, and problem solving is something that we want the CEO to have. But with the financial projection, it's hard to know if the CEO and the founder, they know the way to make their dream come true. So it's the balance between the reality and also the dreaming guys. And intellectual property is very important. But as we all know that the case of IP protection in Vietnam is not good enough yet. I believe in the future it can be developed by the effort of government and also by some effort that company like us try to do. We try to introduce more people with knowledge about intellectual property to have with the government. So we got better situation and also better system to integrate the intellectual property, because anyway, it's a barrier that can have the founders to fly without worry of any copycat. So I just came across some notes about the things, and I believe that now is the time to invite our honored guest today, Brendan, to share more about his 30 years experience and adventure.
Thank you, Tien. Do I say ciao? Is that how you salute in Vietnamese? So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to this. So just give me an indication of how much time you want me to stay within, Tien.
Yeah, I think we got lots of time. Yes. Yeah, you. I believe that you have more than 30 minutes.
Okay, so I'll keep it, and then we have questions and answers, I presume, after. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to take that poll down that I can see, and I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, please.
And just let me know if you can see. Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. You can make it widescreen. It should be great.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Perfect. Perfect.
So everybody, thank you for having me, and I hope I can be of use to everyone here and to share the many years of experience. What I don't want to do is I don't want to lecture to you about the mechanics of being an investor or the mechanics of being an entrepreneur. What I do want to do is to give you very valuable information on things that I've learned over 30 years on being both sides of the fence. And ironically, I'm on both sides of the fence right now because I've got my own startup and I'm also chairman of HBAN in Dubai. Although the two things don't intersect, they're things that I'm involved in. So I'm going to give you that sort of experience rather than give you the step one, step two, because I think that's not very fruitful. And I also believe that after so many years, one's advice to people gets shorter and more wiser. So maybe you can take it in that context. So first of all, I'll cover who am I. Then we look at being the best investor, and then look at being the best entrepreneur. So Tien, you let me know if I'm speaking too fast. I'm deliberately slowing down with my Irish accent so everybody can hear and understand me. But certainly raise your hand if I get too fast and my accent gets too strong.
I think so far so good for now. Yeah, but just forget to ask you what's the crack, and it's okay.
The crack is good. The crack is good.
Yeah.
So my professional highlights: basically, I've worked over 24 countries in 35 years. I love to travel. I started in 1991 from Dublin City University, which is the opposite side of the city to where you are, Tien. Some call it the UCD for dyslexics because it's DCU. I then went on to be a consultant in IBM in a mainframe environment, which was very invaluable in the future. Went to Saudi Arabia, worked for Saudi Aramco, the biggest oil company in the world. Then went to Canada and worked in CGI, which was the largest consulting firm in the world. The largest consulting firm in Canada. I then returned to Belgium, my parent company at the time, and I worked for Elias. I then went back to Ireland and I did my first startup, which was European Library Solutions, which I outsourced work from the Belgian company. And I sold that company back to the Belgian company. It was my first sale. In 2000, then I created my second major company called Columba Global Systems. And we installed a National Security Agency system for the Irish government after the death of a very famous journalist, Veronica Guerin. We were commissioned 5 years after that to create the technology for an agency that was to fight terrorism and crime. And, oops, still there. 2010, then I had one of the greatest jobs of all was the Royal Flight of Oman. I was an advisor to the Commander-in-Chief. Then I went to McKittrick in 2016. I became the CTO. We acquired two companies. So again, you know, both sides of the equation, acquiring and investing. And I did a lot of due diligence on these companies. Average price was about 20 million. Then in 2017, we acquired 𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗃𝗿𝗃. I can't give you the exact figures, but it was quite north of $500 million. And we merged into one company and we rebranded as 𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗃, and I became the global CTIO. And then in 2019, I started Aeroband with my co-founder, 𝗘𝗧𝗹𝗶𝗃𝗃 from Malta. And we're reinventing aviation. We're calling it Aviation 2.0, and we're using the blockchain to leverage new ways of doing things. So essentially, I keep losing the screen here because I think there's people coming in the door. So just bear with me. So then I became the chairman of HBAN in 2021. So just to give you a little feel, McKittrick 2016, we had 200 airlines. I was the CTO. We had 150 shipping lines. And then the following year, we bought our biggest competitor, 𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗃𝗃. We rebranded. We had 350 airlines, 150 plus shipping lines. And effectively, we were running the global ticket system for airlines. So my job was to make sure that the BSP, which was valued at $250 billion plus, ran smoothly. So I went to bed every night saying my prayers to God to make sure that everything ran as smooth as it could. And we also had 6 data centers in about 18 major offices around the world. In 2019, I then co-founded Aeroband. So you may ask, in something in this context, why would you step away from such a big organization? Actually, the timing was brilliant because nobody was to expect 2020, but I didn't know that. But my gut instinct told me I needed to do something very special. I'd seen the industry from the inside. I knew it very well. We had customers from all over the world. And I just had a feeling that there was an opportunity here. And this is how an entrepreneur should think. So I'm going from a global, very corporate, office-based, we were owned by a global equity, private equity company. So a very disciplined environment. I had a budget of about $32 million and $18 million indirect, so $50 million to manage. And I did that within 1%. And basically that was a very disciplined environment. I enjoyed the work, I enjoyed all the airlines, but the opportunity that I saw to bring in new technologies to actually reinvent aviation was just too tempting for me. So I left in January 2019 and I founded Aeroband. And our ambition is to create Aviation 2.0. Now, a previous CEO of mine approached me and he said, Brendan, I want to invest in your company, which is always the word you like to hear when you're an entrepreneur. And he said, I have 3 questions you need to answer. And effectively, those 3 questions I could answer 2 immediately. And 1, I said, let me come back to you. So the first one, what problem are we solving? The second, why are we the best to solve this problem? And the third question was, how will we overcome the airline intransigency? Intransigency is the lack of will to change. So the first 2 questions I answered, and I'll show you a little bit of insight on those in a second. The third one, overcoming airline intransigency, I had an idea in my head. I said, I'm going to sign an airline to use our technology. It might take me 12 months, it might take me 24 months, but as soon as I sign an airline, I will go back to my CEO and say, hey, I've got an airline. It might be a pilot, it might be a proof of concept. A little piece of paper with ink from a customer says, somebody in the world believes what you're doing and is willing to pay for it. That's very important. And that's a line you have to know when to cross. And it's very important for investors as well. So in 2020, in March, we were just about to sign a little piece of paper with a global, one of the biggest airlines in the world, an American airline. I can't say which, but they then decided all contracts would be stopped because of COVID-19. So I was then in a situation where everything we had built for a year and a half, we were just looking at it, all of it disappearing. And we had to think very differently. We had to say, how do we react in a world that's completely changed? And this is the sign of an entrepreneur. This is why people invest in people, because the smartest entity out there in the biological world, is the human, and the human knows how to adapt. And that's why we've survived and thrived. And when somebody is in a situation, they've got to be able to take a step back and look at the big picture and also look at the micro opportunities, but map that into your macro decision making. So that's what we did in Aeroband. We took a step back. We got involved in safe travel and testing. We worked with virologists, clinicians, We worked with airports, we did blueprints for travel and all. So it was basically a flip, but we also gave advice in how to design a blockchain-based wallet for, you know, health passport, et cetera, et cetera. So we got smart, and it turned out to be one of our best years. But I'll come to the last question in the next couple of slides. So again, I'm just focusing on a particular use case, which is our business in the aviation industry. And I'm going to just walk you through the mind of an entrepreneur tackling a big problem in a big industry, such as aviation. So I hope this is of use for anybody listening. So airlines have a profitability challenge. So basically, if you take pre-COVID, 2019, the average revenue per passenger globally was $189. Now, if we represent that as an aircraft, which I did at a couple of presentations just before COVID, it effectively, you've got your fuel costs at 21%, labor costs at 21%, and then you have all other costs at 55%. Now, what should become very, very obvious to anyone with a mathematical mind is that leaves a very small profit. So the airlines were operating at a 3% profit over what was a revenue for the airlines of about 900 billion pre-COVID. So they were already in a dangerous and precarious situation. So that 3% was awfully small. And I made the point that I flew in on an aircraft for a presentation in November 2019 for KPMG. And I told one of the guys there, I said, the airline made less money, less profit on me than the taxi that brought me from the airport to my hotel. Now, think about it. The airline spends hundreds of millions on aircraft. It trains pilots. It takes all the liability. It builds the customer relationships. But they can only make $6 on me, whereas the taxi made $8. There's something wrong in the design of the system. So airlines are broken in a sense that they give away that huge amount of all other costs here, that 55%, they give it away. So, you know, we wanted to change that, but we had to take it in context. So we took a view back of the industry. So it's always good to be forensic with numbers. And if you look here, this is an IATA, based on IATA data and ICAO data. This diagram I've used several times. The industry is very, it's almost like a sine wave, but a growing amplitude. So it flips between positive, profitability and negative profitability. So it kind of goes 5 years up, 3 or 4 years down, right? So when I gave this presentation, it looked something like this in 2019. But of course, 2020, it's -10 in terms of profit, which is actually a lot better than we thought, but still quite significant if you think about it. That's a very significant drop in an airline, in any industry. So is that a good thing for us? Well, as it turns out, this is actually a fantastic opportunity for companies like Aeroband, because now we're reinventing the applications to be more streamlined, more efficient, and we're rewriting applications that are 30 years old. So the opportunity is actually quite huge. And bearing in mind, the future is never predictable. 1995, nobody will read newspapers online. 2000, the internet may be a passing fad as millions give up on it. Famous headlines, and there's thousands of these headlines. We don't know how the future pans. And when we try to make a guess, it's generally quite a precarious thing to do. So always bear in mind, change is constant. As John F. Kennedy said, the only thing that's constant is change. So what do we know is happening? So one of the things I was going to show you here is just to give you a size of data, right? And I was thinking how to do this. So to put a man on the moon, they needed several thousand K, right? So it's less than a gig. I'm just putting this in to give you a relative size. To archive all the records of World War II, it's less than 4 gigs. All the paperwork, everything, the letters, the photos. And the NASA space program in all of the 1970s was effectively less than 5 gigs. So again, all of these could fit on a USB stick. Now the data I had to manage in my previous role, the global airline ticketing system, and this is not even to scale, this is just, it's almost logarithmic on the left-hand side at the top. But you can see the absolute enormity of the data just for one particular use case. So the world has become very data rich and data intensive. You need to be very aware of this because the volume of data is something that you need to be conscious of. So if you're designing or developing as an entrepreneur, always be conscious of the volume and the scalability of your solution and your idea. Make sure you can scale to the biggest. And also there's a digital technology explosion. And I'll show you a little bit later on why. From my 30 years experience, technology is quite important, but not relevant. And I'll explain what I mean by that later, because this is one thing I've learned over and over. It's the greatest disconnect between investors and entrepreneurs. I've sat in rooms, because I'm on both sides of the fence, my empathies are with both sides. I have a unique view of both, and my sympathies are with the entrepreneur who's seeking the cash and wants to build his dream. But what often happens is the venture capitalists are very well-tuned, well-groomed folks who understand the value transfer and the value, creation. And they're also very good at value capture, and they're two different things. Whereas the entrepreneur is so enthusiastic to create this sense of value, they usually focus on the technology overly, so to say, how great their technology is. And you can see in the list there, you have great innovations around IoT, artificial intelligence, the cloud is omnipresent, but you've got to leverage them to bring business value. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. So the one technology that did leap out at me, and it's not even a technology, because in reality, the technology I'm going to talk about is blockchain. Blockchain is a new way of thinking. It actually doesn't have anything in it that's earth-shattering new in terms of technology. There is some innovative stuff, to be honest, but basically it's cryptography, distributed system, blunt force of using, large numbers of servers to do a pretty simple job of storing. Now, when I worked on the mainframes back in IBM, we had a system called VSAM at the late 80s, early 90s, which was virtual sequential access method. So I don't know if anyone on the call is old enough to remember that, but it was effectively blocks of data chained together by a link between the blocks. It was effectively a rudimentary version of blockchain. Now everything got more sophisticated. We went to relational databases. Now we're back to blocks linked together. So it's effectively, we're back where we started. So if you look at the two sort of measures I have here, these are really important measures, and you need to think about these two when you're bringing value. One of them is the facilitation of trust, and the other one is the creation of community. Everybody will tell you the longer they live on this planet, the most successful communities are the ones that have a sense of community and they have an established rule set around trust, right? The fundamentals of trust. And I was on a call earlier with HBAN, and they were saying it's great when we all get face to face in a room, because folks who meet each other for the first time, they trust each other, and they can't do that over Zoom in the same way. And it's very true. Human nature is very important. Now, I come from a typical Irish family, a large family of 9 children, and we're all very close, and we have 25 grandchildren, and it's a fantastic community feeling. We're like every other family. We have our ups and our downs, but we're very much based on a trust model. And an Irish community pivots on the family. And there's lots of communities like that around the world. And it's a very important factor. It should not be underestimated, because when you build that network of trust, you can move things much faster. So the world, from a commerce point of view, used to revolve around maritime and shipping. So what they needed to do in the shipping world was to have a ship arrive in a port and have a mechanism by which they get paid for those goods on that ship. And that was the evolution of the whole jurisprudence, the judicial system. The laws, most laws were maritime based initially, and you had escrows and banking and transfer of value, because the ship was 1,000 miles away from where it left, and people had to get paid. So all of those trust systems, we created them on the basis that people generally can't trust each other when they don't know each other, which is a fair assumption. Now what's happening is, if you look at all of these technologies here down on the bottom left, these are facilitating the cloud, big data. They sort of give us a basis for community and trust, but they're not things that change the game. Then we have encryption, PKA, AI, ML. These are trust systems that now allow to remove, instances of fraud and tampering and so forth. And then you have data interchange protocols, which give us a language for creating communities. And of course, you have blockchain, which is the best of all of those things. It brings the trust and it brings the community. And that's the sweet spot. That's why we focus on that. So that's my answer to how we're going to fix this problem in aviation. So I won't go too deep into that because it's not for today. So being the best investor, let's just focus on that, and we'll keep the best to last. The first question you got to ask yourself, is it about maximizing profit? And it's okay if it is. But I think it's a broader thing than that. And I think as you get older, you probably appreciate it more. But if you can appreciate it when you're young, then it will be a better life for you, because you won't always be chasing the dollar. You need to strike a balance in your life where, you know, what is the one thing everyone asks? And I ask when I'm on lectures and I say, if you had one wish, someone would say, oh, I want a Lamborghini. I want a mansion, you know, with a swimming pool by the coast in the south of Spain. And then I ask the question, why? And they say, because I'll be happy. So the shortcut is we all seek to be happy. We have different ways of doing it. Some of us want to sit in a temple on a mountain and find inner peace. Some people search for outer peace. And I often say to people, you know, there's a slight difference between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure can also bring happiness, but happiness isn't necessarily based on pleasure. So they often ask me, what's the difference? And for me, pleasure feeds the ego and happiness feeds the soul. And if you get to know the difference between the two, that's where you can get a lot wiser in what you do in your work as well. And I'll come to that later in the entrepreneur section. So is it more about making a positive difference? Now, the sort of answer I've come to is that you can do both. You can do a lot of good in the world and you can make a lot of money doing it. And that's the, you know, that's an honorable way, because the best people without money are no good to us, you know. So what you want is the best people with the money to make the changes they believe are necessary. So take a healthy attitude to money and also be very conscious of the positivity you can bring and the change you can bring. So choose according to where your heart is as well as your mind. Don't eliminate one in favor of the other. So if I summarize, after 30 years of investing, essentially, I'm just going to boil this down into a number of things. And I said, I don't want to give you a big, deep lecture. I just want to give you the points of wisdom, because sometimes these can have a bigger effect on folks when they're, you know, they've got limited time. So the first thing is choose the founders you believe in. That would be my biggest advice. When you're in the room, there's somebody in the room, you really believe in them. You may not be sold on their idea. You might want to hone it, but choose the founders that you believe in. And when you do, believe in the founders that you choose. And Tien touched on that, because you're going to choose these guys. You're going to hand over your money. You've got your shares. So what you now own is not that money. It's not yours anymore. It belongs to the corporate. What you own is the share certificate. But what the guy who's running that, the CEO, the girl, the guy, whoever it is, they are now the trustee of your investment. And you've got to really believe in them, because you can empower someone massively by believing in them. But if you're on their case and you're micromanaging, you can do a lot of damage to, you know, the prospects of a person who may not have self-confidence. You know, someone looks at me and they say, oh, wow, you know, you're so you go on stages and there's thousands, you know, that doesn't, what's hidden behind that is, as a man growing up, I used to get very nervous in front of crowds. I love crowds now, to be very frank, but it took me a while. So it was the people who believed in me helped me to reach that place in my life, and the people who backed me financially as an entrepreneur. The second thing is follow the money by addressing the black spots. And let me explain what that means. This is really important. Once you found your founder and he's got the idea you like, they all have black spots. And the black spot could be technically brilliant, financially hasn't got a clue. And that's quite common. The other one is great guy, great founder. He's the CEO, but he's only the CEO because he's the founder. And that's the wrong reason to be a CEO, all right? I'm the founder of Airline. I'm also the CEO, but I'm happy to have an argument. You know, if a guy comes in and he wants to back the company for several million, he says, but I got this whiz guy. Okay, let's talk about it. You know, you got to be open about that. So always watch the black spots. And you as the investor can bring a lot of value around those black spots, because you probably have the time and the experience that the founder doesn't have. The other thing is do all the smart work before investing. I've seen people put a huge amount of effort into examining and deep diving a company when things are not going well, and they've already invested. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but better than that is to put all your time and energy into really understanding that company and helping the founder to express in the minimum amount of lines or paperwork the challenges of that business, because you don't want to hit those challenges blind. So what you do is you tease it out of them, but do it as quick as you can, because you don't want a prolonged distraction from the business itself. But you need to get to that one sheet of sort of, here's your challenges. It could be a SWOT analysis, but it requires very open, honest conversation. Again, this word trust comes in. You build that trust. The last thing I have here is divide your portfolio into low risk and high risk. The reason I'm saying this is a lot of folks out there go in pursuit, and an investor has blind spots too, because an investor doesn't necessarily understand every field. So what they'll do is they'll gravitate to what they know. And I would say to folks like that, as an investor, take a punt. It doesn't have to be a big punt. I mean, you calculate it percentage-wise on your portfolio, what you can afford to lose, but take a punt on the guy. You just know he's good, and take that high-risk punt. If it fails, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because he's the guy, he might come back 2 years later, 10 years later, and you know him, he knows you, you've trusted, he's failed and picked himself up, and he's a better guy for it. So your second investment will be quicker, and you may get your 10x, your 15x on that, which covers your previous investment. So don't see it as a one-off, and don't see it as a lost bet, because betting on someone who fails is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? And I don't know the culture in Vietnam, but I know the culture in Ireland was failure. When I was growing up, failure was something everyone avoided. So people avoided doing what they were good at because they were afraid of failure, right? And I don't know, but from my experience in some parts of Asia, and I'm being very general here, and forgive me, there's also the feeling that, bear with me, that's my timer for 25 minutes. The folks I've met, you know, in different parts of Asia and so forth, there is a little bit of reluctance to failure. Like if you go to the US, everybody just do it. They just get straight in, and they, you know, they fail fast. So that's the kind of thing I would say. Failing fast is very, very important, and nothing to be afraid of. The other biggest fear among folks is the fear of success. And I'm writing a book at the moment, and I've got a whole chapter on that, because sometimes the fear of failure is the first hump you get over. The second hump, the bigger one, is the fear of success. It's a really strange one, and I've seen it over the years, and I've said, people not feeling worthy to be super successful, not willing to open up the channels and the energy to allow it to happen, to manifest. So that's something just to bear in mind as well. So what I'll do here is I'll just jump on, conscious of time. So allow for a % failure, as these may be the future successes. Now, there was a lot of examples of this. There was, if you think about it, Apple in the late 90s was a bad bet. Everyone knows Apple became a great bet. Ford in the late, early 2000s, bad bet. NASDAQ, early 2000s, people wouldn't have touched as a bet. American Airlines in 2011, when they were in trouble, and they've bounced back. So, you know, what looks like a bad bet sometimes isn't. So just to bear that in mind. Okay, the last piece I'll touch on. I'm conscious of the time, Tien. I probably have another 5 minutes, I guess. Is that okay?
I think you have more than that. Just take your time, because let me see, it should be, yeah, you have 5 even more. Take your time, don't worry.
So we'll do between 5 and 10 minutes. I just want to be conscious of your discipline on time. So being the best entrepreneur, this is probably an interesting bit for me. And I think for a lot of people out there, what is an entrepreneur? You know, this is essentially is an entrepreneur someone who has done something, or someone who is going to do something? For me, an entrepreneur is someone who has dreamed and has begun to pursue that dream. Just begun. That's your beginning of an entrepreneur. If you're dreaming, we all have dreams, most of us anyway, but it's the beginning of the pursuit. That's when you become that's the beginning of your entrepreneur voyage, I believe. So what's your deepest dream? This is something you need to ask, because what we often do is we say, oh, I've got to do a blockchain, got to buy crypto, you know, and these are great things, but they're motivated by a very scalar factor, which is, you know, profitability, which is good. But what's the deeper thing? What are you pursuing? What are you pursuing? Do you want 50 years of, you know, working with a boring technology that you never liked? Or do you want to use that technology to change the world for the better in a way that you're passionate about? And that's really important, because if you follow your deepest dream, this will always be your sweetest pursuit. Bar none, you can never enjoy anything better than pursuing your deepest dream. If it's not your deepest dream, you'll never be entirely happy. So just to bear that in mind. Anyway, let me take a little quick look at what an entrepreneur is. This is just kind of a funny perspective. So this is 6 different perspectives, and I think I saw it recently, and I said I had to share this because it's very real. So the first one is, this is what my friends think of me as an entrepreneur. You know, I've got the high life, right? This is not necessarily me, but generally for entrepreneurs. This is what my mom thinks. I'm out doing business in a suit. I'm an important guy. This is what the media thinks. I'm rolling in money because I'm an entrepreneur. This is what my girlfriend thinks, in my case. My wife thinks I'm sitting playing computer games. This is what I think I am. And finally, this is what I really am. So one of the things to bear in mind is the whole entrepreneur world, it has all of these all in the same day. You know, like you're obviously in pursuit of something that you believe will be super successful. And, you know, at the end of the day, you wouldn't be pursuing it if you did not believe it was true. So these perspectives are all valid, but it's the pursuit of the outcome which is the key here, to choose what is your outcome and to measure that in little bits and to keep the pursuit of that. And playing games and making money and sitting on the beach, all welcome, fantastic, but keep your eye on the big prize. So after 30 years of creating value on the entrepreneur side, and on the balance, I probably had more experience creating companies, although I did purchase a company for over $500 million as part of a team, and I was involved in some technical due diligence, so it was a lot of exposure and learning and so forth. Probably most of my time was building companies because my deepest dream is more around the creative side. And if you put me in a global, you know, role, I love it, but I'll also have this little, you know, dream of pursuing something that I think can change the world and make the world a better place. So here's the kind of advice I would give to entrepreneurs. First of all, technology is irrelevant. And the reason I say that is very, very important. And I always say this when I walk in as a consultant to a big organization, because we give it a lot of focus. Now, when I worked first, I worked on mainframes. So I'm old enough to to remember when there was no internet, you know, there was no websites. I'm also old enough to remember there was no mobile phones. I remember growing up in Ireland, we were one of the first to have a phone in our house, and people would come to our house and sometimes a queue just to use the phone, right? So it was just a dial phone, and that's the way it was. And actually, not far from where I live in Ireland, they ran out of phone lines. So two houses had to share the same phone. So they both had a phone on the same phone line. So they both answered at the same time and said, "Oh, you're looking for the, you know, the 𝗘𝗧𝗃𝗃𝗃 or the O'Mahony's? Oh, this is the O'Mahony's. Okay." And the other one would hang up, you know, and say, "Please hang up, you're listening." So, you know, the technology has come such a huge way. Technology will always change. It'll always get better. Keep your eye on it. And the reason I say that, technology is irrelevant when it works. So if you're driving a car to work, you don't stop and open the hood or the bonnet and check your engine. You only do it when it's broken. But what you do is you use your car to get to work safe, to put your kids in school safely. It does a job. It's got a dashboard. You read the dashboard. You don't care about the rest, right? So technology has a place. It's beautiful. I love technology. I'm fanatical about it. Don't get me wrong. And I do it in my spare time. But when I'm in the room with the, you know, the president of operations for United Cargo, who I know personally, I don't go in and tell him all about this technology unless he asks me, but I tell him what I can do to make his business a better business. And that's really, really important, and keep that as a focus, because if you can keep doing that, the people who buy from you will buy from you. The second one is cash is king, and you've probably heard this 1,000 times and you're tired of hearing it. I can't emphasize this enough. This is how companies go bust. I don't know what the number is. It's probably about 3/4 of all companies go bust, and it's generally around cash flow. So when you get into business and you take the leap of faith, if you have a very high energy and a great faith in yourself, go for it. Money will come. That's the way the universe works. If you're not so sure about that, build your idea before you cut off your oxygen supply. In other words, your salary or wherever you're working. Spend time building your idea, test it off people who've been there. And if you want to succeed the first time rather than the second or the third time, then get a lot of feedback from people who have failed and who have done the wrong things, because they're the people who give you the best advice. So cash is really, really important. So develop your idea when your cash is safe, then cut loose from, you know, go full time when you know your business idea can be backed. The other thing is nobody can believe more in you than you, right? So look in the mirror every day and say, "Hey, you're a great guy, you're a great girl, whatever it is, I believe in you." If you have to say that and believe it. And even if you don't believe it, keep saying it till you believe it, right? Believe in yourself, believe in yourself, believe. Every human has a gift or many gifts, but there's no human without a gift. And every human has the ability to create the energy to create the reality they want. All reality starts with thoughts. Everything that's been created, every aircraft that's ever flown, every rocket that's gone to the space had to start in somebody's head or a collection of heads. So everything begins with a thought, and that thought has a vibration, and the universe will always respect that vibration. You see that through all the great, mantras and the great religions and all of those things. They all recognize that. So you start with self-love. Love yourself. Love how great you are. Be amazing. Be absolutely amazing. Don't let anyone stop you being amazing. Doesn't matter where you landed on the planet. If you're in the North Pole, in the snow, or if you're in the deserts of the Sahara, you're amazing. And there's nothing can stop you being amazing. And if you believe that, everyone will follow. If you don't believe in yourself and you're self-sabotaging, everything will fall down exactly as you predicted by your energy. So live your life with the highest energy. The last one, name your first customer. This is the best advice I can really give sort of to sign off on the entrepreneur side, is if you can name your first customer, it doesn't mean they have to be signed up. It doesn't mean they have to be, on a contract. What they can be is like, go and meet them and say, hey, I'm going to build this. And it's going to take me 6 months, but I'm going to knock on your door in 6 months. So you won't be cold calling. You'll say, I'm going to build this amazing thing. And in 6 months, I want to have a meeting with you. Can you promise me a cup of coffee for 20 minutes in 6 months? How many people would say no? It's safe. 6 months, you probably won't come back. Okay, I'll have a cup of coffee in 6 months. And you remind them in 3 months that everything is going amazing and you're going to be back in 3 months after. Just let them know every quarter, I'm coming back. And what that does is everybody gets a feeling, then this guy is serious. This person is doing something special. They believe in themselves and they're going to deliver. Let's see what happens. And then when you deliver after 6 months, your credibility is sky high. Why? Because you didn't just walk in with something and say, hey, I built this, buy it. What you did was you set the expectation and you set the energy and so forth, and you set yourself a task and you showed yourself capable of delivering. So I would say that's a really good thing to have as your first customer. They don't have to be signed. They just have to be the guy you walk into to say, hey, I've got it. What do you think? And ask them along the way, could you just give me a little bit of guidance, because I want this to be the best product in this vertical, and you're one of the leading people in this vertical. I don't know if you'll buy it or not, but I'd love you to give me your opinion. So what we did in Aeroband, we set up a program called ID3, Industry Design 3. We get 3 airlines or 2 airports and an airline, or 2 airlines and an airport, depending on the product. They become our advisors for each product, right? And they don't have to do anything. They just have to give us a meeting once a month for an hour or 2. And then once every quarter, give us a half day. And all they're doing is telling us if our product looks good. And it's amazing. So the people that we're talking to, we're getting a lot of positive feedback. So we're just setting up a lot of that right now. We're doing smart contracts for airports, and the feedback is very positive. And I won't lie to you, I'm sitting here and you're saying, look at this guy, he's established, he's done. My first meeting with a COO of one of the biggest airports in the world, it was a coffee meeting. I just said, can I just bounce something off you? I'm not trying to sell to you. I just want your opinion. Am I crazy in creating this smart contract? I was afraid he'd say to me, Brendan, you're nuts. Why would I do this? Why would I do a smart contract? I have my SAP system running smoothly. Go away. He went, oh my God, this is amazing. If you can build this, this will be a game changer. And I was like, wow. So, even when you're polished and you look like people look at it and say, oh, this guy's done all these businesses. It's normal to be unsure sometimes, and it's normal to be nervous. That's okay. Just once you convert that energy into, working your way around to getting an outcome. So I was never going to leave that coffee till the guy guaranteed me another meeting when we were ready, right? So he did. And, that could be our first customer. Who knows? I don't know. But it means that I've set in a few hooks, which actually gives me the chance to go back and present. So the last point there is very important. Name your first customer, okay? So I'm just going to leave you with a quote here. I think there's a Q&A, Tien, so I'll just leave you with a quote I think is a quite nice one. As you grow older, you will discover that you have 2 hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others. And that's from a lady called Maya Angelou, a beautiful lady. So that's what I will leave it. And then I will say, Thank you and goodbye, and contact me in your native tongue. Have I spelled those correctly? Because I have no idea. This is me trying to learn a little bit of Vietnamese.
Thank you, Brandon.
You.
Thanks a million times. It's great, and your Vietnamese is so great. Anyway, and I must say this: we have been 3 series of ETalk, and this is one of the best organized and the best deliver chats that I ever have. And with this presentation, I believe that you guys have some extent of the what can be if you are an entrepreneurs, and also like an from the perspective of an investor. And also also for now, I believe that is the chance for us to have some question and answer section. And to remind the people that just come, Brandon got 30 years of experience in the adventure in terms of aviation, and also he currently is the chairman of Halo Business Angel Network in Dubai, and he have the network to find and facilitate the angels in their investment. So for now, the Halo Business Angel Network got more than 600 angel investors, and we will try to work more closely to understand about the situation, and we try to have more. The reason why Brandon agreed to join with me today is that he wants to deliver the good things and his experience to have not only Vietnamese entrepreneurs and investors, but also the people that tend to be entrepreneurs or investor. So it's great to have your question. Do you have any question to ask us? You can raise your hand, and also you can. I suggest you can open your video, and then it's good to conversation with you. Is there anyone you want to go deeply?
I hope everybody understood my accent. I didn't speak too fast, did I?
I think it's perfect. It's perfect.
Not so many. So there's a question in the chat, Tien, from 𝗃𝗧𝗹𝗸𝗃𝗲, yeah. I can answer that one. It's asking, are investors in your angel network in Middle East and have interest to invest in? Is that Southeast Asia, SEA?
Yeah, Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Can you, Thomas, open the video, and you can ask it directly, so that it's easier to explain your questions also.
Sorry, Tien, I'm in a loud kitchen right now eating dinner. I apologize. Brendan, thank you very much. It's been great listening to you. Yeah, I actually have a few more questions as well. I'll turn on the camera in a bit, but if you don't mind, just wondering, what is the appetite for, and maybe you add a little bit more insight or context to how well structured or formulated the angel group is in Dubai, and then what is your interest in investments in Southeast Asia?
Okay, so, yeah, thanks for that, and enjoy your kitchen. I hope you're eating dinner nicely.
Yeah, thank you.
Which part of the world are you in?
I am in Ho Chi Minh City right now.
Fantastic.
But my ancestors are from Ireland, well, 170 years ago, to Chicago.
Wow. That's amazing. I have a brother living in Chicago for the last 30 years. He's well settled.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, so the thesis of the group in Dubai is very well defined. The HBAN group is specifically focused on Irish companies being supported by Irish investors in Ireland. They've now expanded it to investors outside Ireland with a kind of a twist and an emphasis on Irish type investors. So the first crew that we've taken on board are basically successful Irish businessmen in Dubai, because we've narrowed it down to Dubai. It's not even UAE per se. And they're just looking at businesses that are emanating through the pipe of HBAN. So it's very narrow. To be very clear, it's only Irish companies at the moment. That's the model. So because it's backed by the Irish government, It probably won't be much broader than that in the future, because that's their brief and that's their focus. So to answer your question directly, no, I would say not in any time in the near future, not that group anyway.
Okay, thank you.
I think there should be some expand. It's just an because there's a guy who is the name is John Phelan. He's also worked very closely with Brendan and I, and we on the way to discuss how to open the Vietnamese Angel Network, the syndicate of Vietnamese Angel Network, and also integrate Irish angels like me in Ho Chi Minh. So that from that point of time, I believe that we can discuss more about using the method of HBAN, but also try to boost the ecosystem of angel investor in Vietnam and also Asia Pacific. So for now, they got the syndicate in Singapore. That is a pilot syndicate, and we hope that we have the Vietnam in the very near future. I hope that within this year or early next year. So
can I ask a follow-up question? What is the name of the pilot program in Singapore?
It's also Halo Business Angel Network.
Ah, okay, great.
HBAN Singapore, yeah. So one of the things I'm looking at, Thomas, here is to get more investors involved who are not just Irish interest. So here in Dubai, it could be locals or folks who are living here. I'm pretty open-minded. So that's the kind of proposal, like we can bring in folks who are just, they may not have an Irish interest, but they're interested in high-tech companies, service companies, SaaS systems, things that are of interest, and they can invest their money and feel that it's a good bet. So far, the companies that I've brought down the pipe have been really, really good. They've been very high standards. So I've been very impressed, I have to say. I've been out of Ireland quite some time.
So you raised a few, points that provoke more questions. Sorry, I'll just keep this one very brief. But to speak to one of the points you made, Brendan, about the interest in how it's, I guess you call it cross-border, or even cross continent nowadays, between Ireland to Dubai. And Dubai has been a very hot area for investing for more than 15 years. Southeast Asia, especially Vietnam, the last 5 years or so, for technology couldn't be hotter. And
I believe
I think a lot of the folks on this call, if they're based in Southeast Asia and if they're entrepreneurs, I'm actually also speaking about myself as an example, building SaaS or software companies that have the ability to serve clients in other parts of the world. So aside from the capital and expertise, but also the introduction and making that connection between these geographic areas might be helpful for everybody else as well.
Yeah, I hear your point. And I think that's what Tien is he's trying to build something here that's a framework, a platform, broader, but a way of tapping into that surge of energy and enthusiasm and the brain power and all the ideas. Because believe me, when I started doing my first ideas in Ireland in the 1980s, there wasn't too many people around to support them. I was just a crackpot that was trying to do crazy stuff, in school. And, the ecosystem is very advanced. And as Tien said, it's flying at the moment. I think 50 cents from every American investment in Europe goes into Ireland now, which is incredible. It matches the rest of Europe. But that didn't happen overnight. And it certainly wasn't in play back in the 80s. So it had to be grown, it had to be worked on. And there's reasons for that beyond just good tax breaks. There's a lot of history, as your example of that, Thomas. There's a lot of legacy history. It's the last country in the EU that speaks English as a first language. I suppose that's not insignificant as well.
Yeah, I see as the kind of effort that we try to do with this event particularly. So I'm afraid that I need to skip some because Brendan has mentioned very detailed about the philosophy of HBAN and their boundaries. So I will skip some question like if you invest in this area or that area. If you miss that part, we can answer you afterward after this event. So we can go to some question more deeply into how to good fundraising, also how to do good portfolio management, things like that. Something that you want to dive deep into the knowledge of Brendan and his experience. So I have some questions from we just collected those questions from the previous the time that we prepare this this event. It should be like from your point of view, Brandon. From your point of view, is given that you are mentoring some Vietnamese young students, as we know, Brandon is having some young Vietnamese students who get abroad to study. And what do you think about Vietnamese characteristic? And what do you think that in order to improve as an entrepreneurs, and also because in the country, people just talk about how to boost the innovation of Vietnam, and also we as an Irish investor come back to Vietnam to try to help them. So what is the characteristics of Vietnamese that you understand?
Yeah, so I look at nations as, you've always to look at the history. If you miss the history, you miss so much formation of the psychology and the psyche of the people, And I remember reading something, it was a long time ago, it was we had a revolutionary leader in Ireland by the name of Michael Collins, a great leader, and he died at the age of 32. He was assassinated at the age of 32, but he led the fight against the British for Irish independence. But he was also a friend of Ho Chi Minh in London in 1920. And the two of them actually discussed the independence of their countries, how to become independent after World War I. And they shared a lot of ideas. And Ho Chi Minh and Michael Collins went back to their countries and fought for their independence. And Michael Collins became a great hero in Ireland. And sometimes when you die young, you're unblemished and your history is pure. So the legend sometimes exceeds the history, but he was a great man and a great leader. And I love when I hear those connections. My wife is from Pakistan. And 1947, they had partition, and from Hindustan, and India had its own state, and all of these creations out of a colonial past, they have a big formation on how people think. They have an influence on your education system, your approach to government. So the kid I was helping is from the mountains, and he just had a huge energy to go out there and to learn and to be part of this world. And he was it was the only one person I met from Vietnam. He would have been an amazing ambassador for Vietnam because he had good energy. He was honorable. He was very polite, but he had a focus. And I just helped him as best I could because, I recognize that in a person. Then if you help somebody, we used to say in Ireland, there but for the grace of God is me, So you don't know why, there shouldn't be a reason. But my quote that you saw at the end was there for a reason. You've got two hands, one for yourself and one for the world, because you can't not help yourself, and at the same time you can't not help others. So you've got to find that balance. So yeah, I was trying to help the guy, but he had enthusiasm, he had drive, and he struck me as the next generation. They see the world as their playground, not maybe Vietnam. They see beyond the borders. They see, look, where in the world can I be successful? Do I go to US or Russia? Do I do it at home? Do I want to be in aviation? Do I want to be in sea shipping? Do I want to be in agriculture? Where's the place that I want to find my dream? So I find there's a commonality between humans all over the world. Everyone is aspiring to be successful. But the most important thing is somebody just said, please speak up. Can everyone hear me okay?
I just want to say that it's 𝗘𝗧𝗹𝗶. He's in hospital now, but he still joy. But his question is like the same one. I will answer him later after this one.
Okay, I can see that. So 𝗘𝗧𝗹𝗶, just wishing you the best in hospital from everyone here. We're all sending you beautiful energy of love, and we hope you get well soon, okay? So the HBAN doesn't only invest in Irish companies, but what Tien had asked me to do was to come here to give you an idea of the model, because he's going to replicate that model here in Vietnam. So that's, I think, the reason for that. So to give you a feel that these kind of things can be transplanted into Vietnam under his company and the folks he works with, Wiziin and all of that. So, all of that, I think it's the right time for Vietnam, because if you go back to when I was a kid in Ireland, money-wise, we were the poorest country in Europe, right? We weren't in Germany, we didn't invent airplanes. We didn't have what you had in the UK, Belgium, Holland. These places had, you know, a higher standard of living, but we were rich in other ways because we were very wealthy in, you know, food supply and good fresh air and a great quality of life. You know, we had big families and, you know, everybody ate well. Generally, there wasn't much poverty, but there wasn't a huge amount of wealth, right? So the country moved slowly. And then we were, you know, we just started to grow very fast. And a lot of that came from American investment, like the headquarters for Facebook, the headquarters for Google outside of the US, LinkedIn, you name it, they're all in Ireland. Vast majority are in Ireland. And that created a lot of incoming. And then you had a lot of Irish that went abroad that were very successful. So a lot of folks were very creative. And I think the time had arrived for creativity. So my question to you guys is, if Vietnam has a strong sense of creativity, and I guess it does, then your time has come. Because in Ireland, we didn't have much infrastructure. So big industries like steel industries, you know, boat building. The only boat that we built was the Titanic, and we all know what happened with that. So we didn't have the infrastructure, we didn't have the industrial base like the other European countries, but we were very rural. But we had community and trust, and we had that sense of working together, you know, and collaborating. And what happened was the education system was good. People worked hard to get a good education. That was a very common theme. In Ireland, teachers are very highly respected because of the historical role they played during the colonial times. We hold teachers very high. And for all the things that went wrong with the Catholic Church, on the flip side, they had a very good structure for education, for schools. You know, the religious schools were everywhere. So they had upsides and downsides, but the upside was that people got a fairly good, you could be in a very poor part of Ireland and you could have kids who knew Latin, could speak Latin, like it was crazy stuff. So we were good at engineering, we were good at maths. So I think, and one of the things the Irish people are very good at is we're storytellers. You know, we love to tell stories. We're singers, storytellers, musicians. And that didn't fit in the Europe of the 60s and 70s, which was industrial. But then the Europe of the 80s and 90s was more software, solution oriented. And that's where creative economies come in. So anyone with a laptop and creativity can now create $1 billion business. You got 2 kids from Ireland now who own Stripe, and Stripe is worth, I think it's 90 billion now, you know, the payments company Stripe. So they're 2 kids from a village in Ireland. So, you know, there's great hope in the context of Vietnam because you're creative people. You know, you've got a great history of art, you've got a great history of music and creativity. And that's all you need. You need that plus a laptop, plus a decent internet connection. I hope you get decent internet. So you're free to work it. There's no limits anymore. And probably, I will say, in this day and age, if you're facing west, you probably have to speak English. If you're facing east, you know, or wherever, you probably speaking Chinese probably wouldn't be a bad thing, facing south or whatever, but you have to start looking to where the market is that you want to play, right? And the skills are, the minimum skill set is required now. People are mobile, business is digital. We're all sitting at home probably, most likely. Most people are not in their offices. Most people are at home, and that's normal now. So I think the opportunities are huge. I think it just takes a bit of drive, a bit of persistence. And I would also suggest something else as well. If there's entrepreneurs here and they're finding their way, you need to get together, meet mad people like yourselves at least once a week or once every 2 weeks. Get together, meet, have a coffee, have a beer, whatever it is that you do it as a group because you'll support each other. That's really important because when you're an entrepreneur, you lose hope sometimes. And you don't know where to go. If you're sitting in the room and there's 10 people, there'll be 3 people losing hope, and there'll be 7 people telling them, the future's bright, just keep going. What do you need? I'll help you. And get those groups going. That's awfully important. You know, supporting one another. Can't stress that enough. That was huge for me in the early days. I got invited into a CEO forum when I started my first company. And these were all Irish companies on the NASDAQ. And I was 29 and I certainly wasn't on the NASDAQ, but I got invited into this room. I don't know how, but I was one of about 20 guys in the room. And I just learned so much from these guys. They were all on the stock exchange. They were listed. They were big companies. So that was something fantastic. And have a glass of wine like Thomas is doing now. It doesn't do any harm at all. Takes the edge off the week.
Yeah, I believe there's a kind of gathering for the Thursday night, and it's great that we can still hear. And I think next time I need to have a glass of wine or even Irish whiskey, like Thomas. It's really great.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's been a long day.
Yeah,
This is
sure.
like my 9th call. So,
I, yeah, to add something to Brandon, like we always say, as an VC industry, in the VC industry, anyway, VC and also entrepreneurs got the one same things. They are both data-driven storytellers. You base on data, but also you do storytellers. It's something that I have learned from my experience is investing as a VC. So we can come to the next questions from Duy. Do we have Duy here so that he can open the camera and ask Brandon? Are you here, Duy? Can you open the camera? Okay, if he is not here, I will I will read that. Okay, I wonder how did COVID-19 affect aviation investment, and will there be any changes toward the industry in your forecast? So, in your opinion, Brandon.
So basically, at one stage last year, there was no industry. Aviation was dead. Has anyone seen those maps where they show all the aircraft flying around the world? They're called Flight Radar 24. They're free maps, free. You can see the map of the world and it shows you all the aircraft.
Yeah, we also use that in Vietnam. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a global map and you can see all the aircraft. So Flight Radar 24, I think it's called. I went there and I looked it up at one stage and the world was just quiet. There was no aircraft in the world flying anywhere. I can't remember the particular month or whatever. It was the most incredible sight because if you look at it now, you can't even, like, there's airplanes on top of each other. You know, there's tens of thousands of aircraft in the air. So the aviation industry was completely flatlined at the worst point. So I rang a friend of mine in my previous company and I said to him, what is the reduction in revenue? Because revenue accounting is the system they use to determine how much flown revenue there is, not how much bookings and how much money was actually flown. And he said it was 97% down on 2019 at that moment. So only 3% of the revenue of the previous year. So it was pretty catastrophic. And what it did do is it meant for small companies like us, people take us serious now. They say, look, we really need to be more resilient for these kind of black swan events that nobody can see coming. And the reality is the airline industry is still dead in a lot of countries because a lot of the management has been done by medical folks and they certainly are one of the biggest stakeholders in the decision making. But in some countries, there's just total lockdowns. And I don't think it's necessary. I don't honestly think it's medically, because what's happening is you're taking the safest option. And we're still in lockdowns 12 months later. So if they're working, we wouldn't still be in lockdowns, right? So they're not working and we're killing the economy. And the problem is if you kill the economy, suicides go up, sickness goes up, stress abounds. People live in all sorts of difficult circumstances. How, you know, lockdowns cause domestic abuse and all sorts of suffering and pains, and people's business collapse. And it takes years to recover. So you've got to strike a balance between, you know, tolerating a certain amount of accepting that a certain disease or virus is going to have a certain effect and balancing with that with, you know, making sure that businesses stay alive. So aviation has changed forever because I think people will, you know, take a different view. I also think there's a lot of programs have been accelerated, such as decarbonization, a lot of green fuels, things like that. And also the way you pass through airports. They're becoming more automated and more hands-off as opposed to hands-on. So you're getting biometrics that read your face readers and things like that. So there's a lot of contactless passing through airports. So there are a few fundamental changes, but I do see aviation bouncing back to a reasonable level this year and next year. It won't get back to the, you know, there was 4.5 billion passengers in 2019. We won't see that for a few years.
Yeah, I see. Yes, should be a very detailed answer. And about the lockdown things. We somehow on the social distancing in Ho Chi Minh currently is the next wave of COVID-19 is an outbreak. But I think is somehow can buy some time for the vaccine to be developed, and we do hope that in the future we have more better reaction to this situation. And just come to the next question from Trung. Are you here? You follow with us? And if you open the camera and you can answer the question, please. Okay, if Trung is not here, I will read this this question. He have an investment from UAE, from some investor from UAE, but the UAE investor, the United Emirates, the investor tell him that about the contract legalization and notarization, there's a fee and the account to be open. So he just asked that if you in Dubai, so if you can advise him, is there any kind of fee like that from the investor from the UAE?
Okay, so if he has an investor from the UAE, if his contract is in Vietnam, and the UAE investor may be asking him to notarize that as valid in the UAE. So in other words, he wants to know that it's valid. That's a possible reason for that. If the investment is from the UAE and it's in the UAE, then it's obviously on a UAE contract. Then what they may be looking for there, I'm just trying to figure out what it could be. What they're looking for is to open an account locally to create maybe a legal entity. You can't open an account without being a legal entity. That's possible. Is it possible that this is fraud? Yes, that's always possible too. My suggestion would be to avoid this risk. I would hire a local lawyer in the UAE and ask him to represent you to close the deal, and suggest that you pay him a small percentage of the deal as opposed to a fee, right? So if the deal closes, he gets paid a small percentage rather than you pay him a fee, because then it could go on for a long time and you might not even close the deal. Right. So I don't know the circumstances of the investment, so I'm not sure. But I can't tell you if it's fraudulent or not. That's something you're going to have to make a call. But in the UAE, they're generally, I don't know if it's an Emirati or someone living in the UAE, because that complicates it. If it's somebody with a different passport and they say they're from the UAE, but if they're an Emirati, then this is their country here. So they're generally honorable. They don't usually do fraudulent deals, but you'll have to do your own due diligence there, just to be very careful, because I don't have the circumstances. But my best advice is hire a lawyer to advise you, a local lawyer in UAE.
Perfect. I think that there's been some scenarios for Trung to think about it. And just to let you know that next week, next Thursday, we got Simon from Bahrain. And he's a partner of the Plus VC from Bahrain. So it's like in the Gulf area and also like in the Middle East, we get to know more, because anyway, there's some spot of investor there. So about the legal things and a lot of things, I think it's a very valuable chance to have people like Brandon to answer you for those things. And I must say that I need to skip again the question about, if you invest here or there. So we will answer that for you after this meeting. So let's see here. We got the next one, which is from Tristan. I saw you, Tristan. Okay, can you ask the question, please?
Okay, hi Brandon. And a friend would like to open a new startup, and we don't have any idea how to make a deal between us to incorporate the share in future. So could you share for you both experience how to make a founding agreement between the founder?
Sure. How many, Tristan, first of all, congratulations. You're the first one to ask a question verbally, and I appreciate that. So how many founders are there?
Yeah, actually it's just me and one friend, so it's just two co-founder.
Okay, so look, everything is based generally around the world, and I don't know the law in Vietnam, but generally there's a shareholders agreement, which is the agreement between folks. I see on the little pen pictures around the screen, I can see lawyer 𝗘𝗧𝗹𝗸𝗃𝗲. Is that right? So we have a lawyer here who could probably help you. Maybe you can connect with him or whatever afterwards. It'd be a good idea. So my advice from my layman's perspective, because I'm not a lawyer, would be agree in principle with your co-founder a couple of really important things. Like, first of all, if the two of you are together, who started the business? Did you both start it together, or did one of you start it and invite the other guy?
We both start together, and we would like to.
Okay, so do you think it's a 50-50 business, for example, that it's 50-50%?
Yes.
Okay, that makes things really simple. So if you're both co-founders and you want to do it 50-50, just bear in mind that when you get an investor, whatever you agree won't necessarily survive the investor's investment, because they may rewrite the shareholders agreement in their advantage, or at least to their advantage in some ways, right? So you can start off with a very simple agreement, but I would put a couple of things there, Tristan. Do you plan to have a board of directors? Do you plan to have a legal entity with a board of directors, that kind of a model? Is that how it works in Vietnam?
Yes, so we would like to have a board director, but actually we just jump out to build an SaaS platform, and we did not have make any legal.
Yeah, so what I would do is try and do a little bit of research and ask what are the kind of questions that founders need to resolve.
Yes.
Before. So if you go to a lawyer straight away and you don't have an idea, it's just going to take longer to resolve. But if you can go and say, look, we're both co-founders, we're both 50-50 shares. There could be something like, I want a permanent seat on the board, for example. So if investors come in and you have a clause that says, because I'm a co-founder, I have a permanent seat on the board and you can't remove me, they may ask to remove that, but then it's more difficult to take you off the board, right? So you can have a stronger chance to stay, because what sometimes happens is you have people with great technical ideas, but they don't have business sense, or they don't have legal expertise, or they don't have financial sense, and they end up not owning the business and not having control. So you need to decide how that looks. What do you look in 5 years' time? If you get investors, what does the board look like? Do you want to still be on it? Do you want to be the chairman? Do you have somebody you could nominate as a chairman who is wise and semi-retired, who can give you guidance? You know, that kind of structure, so that you have a nice structure. Bring it to a lawyer, talk to the lawyer and say, what is the standard? Is there, sole traders, partnerships, limited companies? All of those structures have to be investigated, right? And they're not trivial. They're very important to get right, because it's like the top of a river. If the river starts on the mountain, it's very small. It has to be very pure and very, determined, so that when the big river comes at the end, at the sea, all of the little effects become big effects, right? So get the formula right on day one and seek some advice. So do some research. I'm sure it's easy to look up structures. There's a company's office. They probably give you brochures to tell you how to set up a company. So investigate, learn as much as you can about the company structure, as much as the technical side. It's really important, because sometimes it's easy to neglect because your focus is on your SaaS solution. You're writing code. I presume you're writing code and you're building a software. And don't forget, give time to your company as well to make sure that it's properly, structured. Because what happens then is it leads into things like patents, copyrights, things that might be important if you want to go big. Like plan to go big. Don't plan to be small.
Yeah, thank you.
Spend what you can afford to achieve pieces of that. And an investor will respect you more, Tristan, if he sees that you've thought all of this through. That's a very important thing.
Yeah, I think there's a long journey for you, Tristan. Yeah, but this will be the very nice journey. Yeah, like Brandon say, at least you find good things to do. So I got some one more questions from the question is as why do you choose Dubai to be your base? Because you have been traveled so long time and now established in Dubai. So why?
Well, I'm kind of a world traveler and I end up in lots of places. So in 2016, I was asked to come here as the CTO of McKittrick. So their world headquarters was in Dubai. We then bought 𝗘𝗧𝗹𝗸 and we merged, and then the world headquarters was probably in London. We had big offices in Spain and Mumbai, and Dubai was probably not one of the biggest offices then. So I had a choice. I could have moved to Spain or to London to be sort of around the exec and the HQ sort of folks. But I decided with my wife that we wanted to stay in Dubai because we liked it. And sometimes you got to do what you like. So that was in parallel to me deciding to build Airline because I had a really good business idea. And my wife runs her own business called the 𝗃𝗍𝗃𝗏. And the 𝗃𝗍𝗃𝗏 is an edutainment brand, which is education and entertainment to teach emotional intelligence to children. So she's committed to that. And plus it's, you know, her family's in Pakistan, my family's in Ireland. So we're kind of not exactly halfway, but we're in the middle of the two countries. So it's a great spot.
Great. And as you know that Brendan and his wife got have each other in the business, and it should be a very great story, but we do not have enough time to talk about that today. But I think connected with Brendan, and we can learn more about that, how to keep the balance, because it's something very helpful when we be an entrepreneurs and also investor. So one more thing. What is the difference between Dubai ecosystem and Dublin ecosystem? If you can see, is there any differences?
Oh wow, that's a brilliant question. So just on the offset, my business is headquartered in Malta, right? But we're thinking of bringing the Aero Labs, which is a full subsidiary, 100% owned subsidiary to Dubai. And we're going to set up the whole ecosystem for apps and developing new applications in Dubai as the headquarters. So that's a plan that we're doing at the moment. And the reason we're doing that is because we like the way Dubai is approaching entrepreneurs. Dubai loves entrepreneurs, right? But you got to be ready. You got to be prepared for them. A lot of people think the streets are lined with gold, but that's not true. You have to work hard here for it. But they do have funds and they do respect people with good ideas, but you kind of have to be beyond just startup. You've got, you know, startups for locals, yes, but if you're coming into Dubai, you got to have a smart idea, be reasonably well funded, have some sort of pipeline of revenue, and then they're more likely to help you. In Ireland, I think the advantage in Ireland is that you have a massive established ecosystem around technology like Facebook, Google. So you have them on your doorstep, right? Now you have those companies in Dubai, but they wouldn't be as deep rooted or as broad. So they're not as broad and as deep. They do have an office here, but they wouldn't have 600 people working for them. On the flip side, I would have said Dubai has people from all over the world. You can meet so many people, but now in Dublin, I think you can probably say that as well, because so many people have made Ireland their home. So you also get that factor. The other factor is, and I think this is important, in Ireland, you can eventually become a citizen, right? And in Dubai, it's very difficult to become a citizen. So you're always conscious that you're not a full citizen. You're just kind of floating on a contract. So that makes it a weaker proposition for folks who want to live here and retire here. And I think that's changing because they've started to introduce golden visas, citizenship and things like that. So they're slowly changing on that, but I think that's something important. That's a fundamental difference as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should be great. At least they got 3 letters, the same, like DUB, Dubai and Dublin. Anyway.
They do. That's of interest. Yeah.
But the one last question.
Yes.
The time that you become the chairman of HBAN Dubai, what you feel? What is the most challenge that you feel when you manage, ton of the deal flows for other angel investor? So what do you feel the most challenges?
Initially, I'll give you 2 answers. One, the initial challenge was I wanted the companies presenting from Ireland to present in such a way that they would get the attention of the investors in Dubai, right? Because I had a sense that a lot of the investors in Ireland would be, a lot of the investors in Dubai would be, they'd need a snappy, quick connect, right? Because if you're in Ireland and you know the folks and you can meet face to face and you can have coffee with them, when you're this far away, to build that trust, and we're back to trust again, you had to build that trust quickly. So that was the challenge for the companies. The challenge for us was to, I suppose, to make it an attractive thing where there's a lot of noise. So bringing Irish companies, even digitally or on Zoom or whatever, into Dubai, where there's lots of opportunities here for investment. So the investment proposition has to be a very good value proposition. So that's the biggest challenge, Tien, is to say, I've got 3 Irish companies, you know, I'm going to do it every 3 months, and they're going to be really, really good companies, and keeping the expectation high, keeping the standard high. In a place like Dubai, where there's just so many options for investment, there's so many people banging on your door who have ideas and really good ideas. And why would you spend half a day listening to 3 Irish companies that are very far away, and you can't really hold them? You don't know if they're going to be honorable. You know, you don't know the people, you haven't met them. Whereas here you can meet people face to face. So it's that kind of, I think we've overcome that. The first show we had was pretty good, and the companies were very good, and there was a bit of traction. And so the folks in the room were interested. So I think that model, we just have to make it, you know, bigger and get more investors at the table.
Yeah, I see. It's always challenge. It's always challenges, and yes. But anyway, we need to find a way to get to deal with that, because anyway, now, for now, with the pandemic, in the investment world, especially VC world, is everything is changing. There's
Tien, can I make one suggestion? Because
yeah,
I know you're short on time. There's a lot of folks in the questions there, and I guess a lot of people will reach out on LinkedIn. Just to be very open, my time is very, very short, given that I do multiple things. So I won't be able to give everybody, you know, workshops or, you know, engagements, but I'll try my best to answer as much as I can. But what I can do is, if I ask a question and anybody can answer it in the chat box, if you're okay with this, I will give a half-day workshop, say 2 to 3 hours or whatever, with the first person who gets the question right. So I can at least give my time to one person in quantity. And if anybody has starting a new business, like an entrepreneur, and if they can answer this question, then I'll give my time. Is that okay, Tien? Because then that's probably the best way to give a quantity of time to somebody rather than little replies to people.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Not that I won't reply, I will, but I won't be able to give as much time. But if I give, you know, to one guy or girl who's starting up a company. So I have a question. I showed the picture of the airplane, and I showed you the ticket value was $189 in 2019. How much profit did an airline make on average in 2019 in that particular picture that I had of the airplane? So what percentage? I'll tell you, it's in single digits. If anyone can remember. Have I stumped everybody? 6%. Somebody wrote 3%. 𝗘𝗧𝗹𝗶. That's correct. It was 3% and $6. So I think that's maybe where the dollars came in, but it was 3% and $6. So the first person who wrote it, Tien, was 𝗘𝗧𝗹𝗶@gmail.com.
It's make me feel like it's a lottery announcement.
Yeah. So I hope it's not a lottery.
Who's Jai tonight? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just want to make a quick introduction. Jai is from Taiwan, and he's got a very brilliant product in terms of AI. As the name is Unigym, and also we work with him quite a long time. Brilliant guy. I think it's the good time for you guys to be connected.
Yeah. So what I do is I'll give a half a day of my time, just totally focused on him, give all my experience I can. To the rest of you guys, if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer. I just won't be able to get on long calls and what have you, just in advance. I don't want to disappoint anyone. But this guy's name is Mark, is it?
Yeah. I think it's for that thing. I think you just throw the question to the organizer. We will organize and we will answer as with our best. We try, but for Brandon, he also need to handle a lot of things, like you say. So we will take that initiative. And if you have questions, just send to the organizer. But for Brandon, I think it's brilliant to do some lottery game like this. And congratulations to Jai. It's great to have you today. Okay, so I think it's the time for us to say goodbye. And I think that there's two more things that I need to take a note on. ETalk is a program that organized by Wiziin, and also we got cooperation with the Embassy of Ireland in Vietnam, and also the Enterprise Island in Southeast Asia. We hope that you have good time. And for your information, next week, on Thursday also, we got Simon Gelpin from Plus Venture. He's based in Bahrain, and he's the World Economy Forum guy, and he very famous in terms of FDI, foreign direct investment, to Bahrain and also to Hong Kong, where he basically do the job. And the Thursday after that, we got Kevin Ryan from Enterprise Island, and he's the director of Southeast Asia department. We hope that in the future we will have some very remarkable guys, that 𝗘𝗧𝗹𝗶𝗿 from UCD also. He's the author of the book, Raising Venture Capital for the Serious Entrepreneurs. It should be great to have him, and we will let you know. And for the things, and also the last thing, very last thing, is like we because of the demand of understanding the venture investment, we create the Vietnam Venture Capital Program with a lot of experts that we put together from Enterprise Island, from the Embassy Network, HBAN, and also the University of North Carolina. So we hope that with this program, we can go more deeply into the things that we discussed today. So for now, I think we do not have much time, but we go deeply into 30 years of experience in a venture of Brandon. And thank you very much, Brandon. Thanks everyone for today. And I hope we had a great time.
Thank you again for a great show. I really appreciate the invite.
Thank you.
And goodbye to everybody.
So Tien, you will help me to arrange the time whenever Brandon is available. I will make myself according to Brandon's arrangement.
Absolutely. Wiziin will have you to organize that. Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Tien.
You're more than welcome, and I hope that's a gesture for all of you. So thanks everybody for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.